Look right here. That's remembered. Welcome everybody, and thank you so much for coming back. If this is your second time with the learning session, and if it's your first time, welcome for the first time. Tonight we're going to be talking all things kindergarten through second grade writing. This is a session of virtual professional development that was sort of co-conspired or co-thought of by Dinah Haight-Manick from the What I Should Have Learned in Facebook page and Kate Solo with the Goyen Foundation. And Kate, if you don't mind, I'm just going to kick it right over to you right out of the gate so you can let us know a little bit more about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to say Virginia actually gets really all of the credit for making this come alive and making this happen. So thanks so much for coming out tonight. At the Goyan Foundation, we're all about working with the best reading teachers in the country, many of whom are on this call. And one of the things that sort of come out of that partnership with these brilliant teachers we work with is that we need to get their knowledge like out in the public more, and we do some of that by sharing videos and pictures of their teaching with teachers who want to learn more. But Virginia had this brilliant idea of taking some of the professional learning that we do in small groups, and as a fellowship cohort, and opening it up to the public. So this is our second free public professional learning session. And we're really excited to bring our fellows' expertise to a broader audience. We love this format. We feel like it's the best way to learn, like from teachers, with teachers, by teachers. And I think right now we don't have any other events on the calendar, but we're gonna do more. Maybe not in February, but definitely in March. I need to talk to Virginia about that. So please stay tuned. We're gonna keep things. Virginia can talk more about this, but we're gonna keep things like real casual. For those of you who came to our first event, like I'm gonna be monitoring the chat all night long. So as we watch some videos together, as Amanda and Caitlin and Virginia talk, like be dropping questions, ideas, comments in the chat, and I will be interrupting them constantly, and we'll get a little dialogue going back and forth. So thanks again for coming out tonight, and sit back, relax, and hope you enjoy and ask a lot of questions. We want the chat to be hopping and popping.
Yeah, and just to piggyback very slightly on that, because Katie really covered it well. This is also really meant to be a dialogue. And we have a lot of just, I know so many of these names, and even just the fact that you're here, you are an expert in your field with your passion and everything you've done already. So ask questions, but also if there's something that you've done that's worked really well, we're all learning every single day together. So, and also, Kata mentioned that there's two other presenters tonight, Caitlin and Amanda, and I am going to let them introduce themselves because they'll do themselves a better service than I probably would when it's their turn to present. So it's probably obvious, but we're going to start with kindergarten and then first and second. So I'm not going to spend too much time telling you things that you probably already know, but essentially reading and writing is the same neural pathways, and we can't leave one out. And writing has been left out a lot. I presented a day in the life of structured literacy like 2 years ago. Um, didn't even have writing in it, literally. Like I stopped at whatever portion of the day, and people are like, "What about writing?" I'm like, "Yeah, no, I do write," but I have again, we're all learning every day. I have since evolved. The Knowledge Matters campaign was a big part of that for me. If you haven't heard that or listened to that podcast, highly recommend when it comes to reading and writing. So essentially, what we're looking at is the model for reading and writing. And the transcription is the handwriting, the spacing of the words, actually the actual mechanics of the writing, and the text generation is putting the thoughts down on paper. And it's the executive functioning and the working memory that puts it all together. Sorry, my chat keeps popping up. I don't want you to pop up. I got Kita. I don't need you. Anyway, I had a great sentence that's on my presenter notes, but it's missing. Just assume it was really good. Um, So I'm going to jump right over to Caitlin, and she's going to let us know about kindergarten. And Caitlin, just give me any sort of sign for me to advance your slide. I gotcha.
You got it. Okay. All right. So writing in kindergarten, I often joke with my coworkers is like the biggest oxymoron ever. Like it's hilarious. Um, so introducing myself real quick, I do live in Pittsburgh. It's freezing. This is my 10th year teaching. Now most of that has been spent in kindergarten. I don't want to say that I'm an expert in what I do, but I will say that I'm an expert learner. So I really do have been trying, for years now to make myself better in what I do. So this really isn't about me and my journey, though. This is about you guys and your journey. So I am here to help you to continue to grow. So I will say though, before I continue, just please, if you're feeling frustrated, and this is some of you I know have been doing this for a really long time and are really, in strides with this process. But if it's like your first time on here, you're like a first year teacher, a second year teacher, like please don't think you have to make all of these changes in 1 year. Like it's a process. So if, writing is your thing you're going to do this year, or phonics is your thing you're going to do this year, whatever it is, like if you're trying to make 72 changes in 1 year, you're going to start to lose it. You're going to say, this is way too hard. And then you're going to quit teaching. And if you're here, you're a good teacher. So don't quit. So just take it in stride, humble yourself a little bit, and just know that, the changes are good and you being here is wonderful. All right. With that all being said. All right. So looking at this picture here. Yep. Go ahead. Next slide. All right. This is just a quick showing, the picture on the left, these kids writing on the walls is something that always, makes me laugh and my coworkers laugh, but that is writing in kindergarten. That is what the beginning stages of kindergarten does look like. These handwriting strengths do have to take place. Kindergarten is not what it used to be even 3 or 4 years ago. iPads have taken over. Cell phones have taken over. These kids can't catch balls. They cannot hold things. Some kids come in and really have never even colored a picture. It's traumatizing and very sad for me as a mom of 3. But you have to spend the time. And it's okay. You just have to slow down and spend the time, because whatever you get into your classroom, by the end, I promise, if you just do these few things, you will get these beautiful things on the right. You will get these beautiful pictures, and you will get these sentences, and you will get these, products of writing that really do build into first grade. But you won't get that unless you really, really do start slow. Virginia, go ahead. You can go to the next slide. So with that being said, now the goal in kindergarten, and I have researched this very well because even for me, this was hard for me to swallow, is one solid independent sentence by the end of the year. And for some of you, I am sure that that is a relief. And for some of you, you are saying, absolutely not. My kids are going to write 4 sentences by the end of the year. No, they need to write one solid sentence. And I don't mean with a scaffold. I don't mean like that you are helping them. I mean, really one solid sentence by themselves. Now that can look very different between what your, the cohorts of what your class looks like. But by the end of the year, they should be able to have a sentence that has, a couple different conjunctions in it. They should be able to have one strong sentence so that they move on to first grade and they can kind of, start to move that into 2 sentences or maybe even 3 sentences. That was hard for me even 2 years ago when I would start the year and I would see, I'd walk into that first grade hallway and I would see, the beginning of the year, what did you do in the summer? And I'd see these long paragraphs and I'd be like, oh my gosh, well, I'm only expecting my kids to write one sentence. Okay, well, your first grade teachers, if that's what your hallways look like, really aren't doing your kids any justice then, if that's what they're doing. They really, and you should, and Virginia really attested this too, which is crazy because we're in different states, but you really need to live in that sentence world for a really, really long time. So after, you develop that handwriting, you really need to start slow. So this kind of shows the how, and then we'll get into it a little bit. So if you're starting slow, we're not going to count these kids out though. Like talk to them, use that terminology. No, we're going to talk about what a sentence is. We're going to talk about syntax. We're going to talk about semantics of those sentences. But we're not just going to be like, okay, guys, today's the day we're going to write a sentence. They will look at you and they'll copy what you do because they know that you're the expert, but they really don't know what you're asking them to do. So you start with fragments, start with the smallest piece of a sentence and build up those separate parts. And I'll show you in a couple minutes some examples on how to do that. You set those examples, you show them what you expect those to look like, and then eventually they will get there. Scaffolding, starting very early on, using those sentence stems. We'll talk about because, but, so, and then sentence expansions. And then one thing that was really hard for me to do because they're kindergarten, you want them to write about snowmen and you want them to write about all these cute, fun things. But the quicker that you can wrap your head around all of their writing really should relate to the content that you're teaching them. One, you're not doing double work. And two, it really does help them so much more become these well-rounded kids. God, you can switch it. So just like a quick quote you guys can read that I don't have to read to you. So just kind of exemplifying from the writing revolution, what they talk about in there, just these kids really are expected to write way too quickly. So before we just do this clip, I'm just going to kind of explain what this is here. So in our district, we do something called win time. So this is actually not my homeroom of kids, but we do switch kids every day for kind of like an intervention. So this is not students that are used to me teaching them all day, but this is every day I get a group of kids and we kind of take like a skill to work on. So for my 4-week skill, we're doing writing. So, which is wonderful because that means all of kindergarten gets the same exposure for that skill. So backtracking, this just shows like, okay, we are going to talk about what a sentence is, what that looks like. And then I'm going to ask the kids, can anybody define that? We talk about the small parts of it. And then as we go through, I will show you, kind of how we work through that step by step. Go ahead, Virginia, you can play it.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you explain what a sentence is?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
It's like something you write, like I can climb the wall or something like that.
Perfect. I like that you had it as a complete thought. So good. So I'm going to say, put your hands up a second. I'm going to say a couple of things, okay? I want you guys to put your bodies kind of like a frog, like this, okay? If it's a complete sentence, you're going to hop up like a frog, okay? Up, Isaiah, focus, stay on me. If it is not a complete sentence, just stay like this, okay? Ready? Okay. Tree. Good. Tree is not a complete sentence. Can run. Oh, close. I almost tricked you. The boy can run. Good. The boy can't run is a sentence. Okay. Elliot. Good. Not a sentence. Okay. Is hot. Good. Elliot is hot. Okay. Good. Sentence. Perfect. Okay. All right. Hedgie. Not a sentence. Good. Is prickly. Not a sentence. Hedgie is prickly. That is a sentence. All right, we're going to do 2 more. Okay, ready? Watermelon. Kiwi. Can run. My teacher is so funny. Good. All right, thank you. All right, go ahead, sit on your bums for a second. All right, so a sentence needs 2 things. Ready? It needs a who and a do. Say that. A who and a do.
Who and a do.
All right, a who and a do. So a teacher, oh my goodness. A sentence means a who or like who the sentence is about, and then it needs to do. Virginia, you can pause it for a second. Well, that's kind of what Addie was telling us in her words. So it needs a. Okay, so we don't have to play the whole thing. I do have it all up there. So after this part, what we did is I gave the kids a yellow card and I gave them a blue card. And if you go to the next slide, Virginia, you can see these on the next slide.
Slide or video?
You don't have to do the next video. We can do the next slide. It's okay.
Okay.
They were given a yellow card and they were given a blue card. And on the yellow card was kind of their who part. So we went through and we read all of the who parts of their sentences. And then on the yellow or the blue part, they were given the do parts of their sentences. And then I had them stand, loud and proud, and they read their sentences. And then we decided, was that a true sentence? Could that make sense, or was it a silly sentence? And we swapped cards. We did it a couple times. And then I created really quickly on Canva just the same little box with a yellow and a blue, and then they wrote out the sentences and they drew their picture. Well, actually, they drew their picture first, then they wrote out their sentences, which is part of the process that we will talk about in just a minute. So this really made them, clearly understand, okay, this one part is in yellow, this one part is in blue. Both parts are very important, and you do need those for the sentence. So again, just one example of showing that it can't just be one, it can't just be the other, it has to be all of it. Go ahead, you can flip. All right. So how do we write in kindergarten? I start this the very beginning of I would say September even. It looks very different in September than it does now, and it looks very different now than it does by the end of the year. It's very systematic. So whether you're familiar with the writing revolution, whether you're really familiar with SDSR, whatever you are doing in your classroom, this pulls ties from everything. Doesn't matter what training you have, you can do it very simply. I always have drawn the pictures first in kindergarten, and I've done that for a couple different reasons. When they are in September, drawing a picture as an answer to a question or drawing a picture to relate to their learning really is writing early. When they get older and when their stamina gets a little bit better and when their fine motor gets a little bit better and they have all of those strokes, and they can actually start to write. I do it for another reason first, but it actually gets their imagination working, and then they can really focus on what they're writing about. But the other reason is some kids want to just get that sentence done and they want to work on a picture. So this kind of eliminates that. Like, look, you have 5 minutes to draw me a really nice picture, and then that picture is done. We're done focusing on that. The second part is a label. I do a really big invasive labeling activity where I take a sticky note and we label, my glasses, my hair, my belly button, all of these funny things that they think is hilarious, but it is just, so they can get that that's one word that goes somewhere. I do have them label at the very beginning one thing on their picture. So again, it just draws them to, I'm not just making a picture of a rainbow unicorn, I'm drawing details that support my sentence. So my sentence is going to match what I'm doing, just like we do in books. So I will even pull books sometimes and show what labels could go with those books, so they usually match the words. Clapping the syllables to support, the writing that we have. So if I have a picture of a flower, we would clap, the parts in flower, and then we would try to sound out those words, and we would do that. And then complete the sentence stem. We are still living in that sentence stem until I would say probably March. And then that is when I will pull that scaffold away from them. God, you can flip. Oh, no, I'm sorry. God, you can play the first video. So real quick before I play this goes with our vocabulary lesson that is very explicit, that's not shown. So twice a week, we do have writing that is tied directly to the vocabulary. We do CKLA core knowledge. So this is tied. I do the vocabulary, and then this will be the lesson that will go after that for the writing.
It's important to a living thing's survival. So it doesn't have to be a plant survival. It doesn't have to be an animal survival. It doesn't have to be a baby survival or just a person's survival. Any living thing. So you can choose and think about which living thing that you want to do. But what is important to that living thing's survival? So we're going to think about that. Do you want to draw about water? Do you want to draw about food? Do you want to draw about space? Do you want to draw about earth? Do you want to draw about air? Whatever it is that is important to that thing's survival, you are going to draw about it. So step one when we are writing in kindergarten is always we draw our picture first. That detailed picture helps our brain think about it. So if you are going to draw about sun being important to a plant, what do you think needs to be in your picture? The sun. If you are going to draw a picture of food being important to people, maybe you're drawing yourself eating your favorite food, okay? If you're going to draw a picture of water being really important for animals, you should draw a picture of an animal drinking water. Perfect. Okay. So whatever it is that you are thinking that is important, so we already said the basics: food, water, sunlight, and obviously breathing air. Okay.
Okay, you can pause it and then play the next one. So while they were drawing their picture, I drew my picture at the board. We discussed, that I drew water and flowers for mine. And then this is just part of the example. And I did leave the full video clips in case you wanted to go back and watch, but just for time's sake, we're not going to play all of them.
Right, you can just fill up water in your sink and you can dump water on it. You can use a water can, or we can just let nature water it, which would be with a rainstorm. So that is what I picked with my picture, which is rain. So my sentence stem, remember, which is a wonderful way to say stem because stem is part of the flowers that we've been talking about. A sentence stem is just part of my sentence. It kind of gives me the part of it, but we have to put the important part, which is the flower part. We have to build the rest of that sentence. My sentence says blank is important to a living thing's survival. My sentence is going to say water is important to a living thing's survival. Can someone tell me in a full sentence what their sentence stem is going to say? So the sun is important. Keep saying it. Is important to a living thing's survival. Perfect.
All right. So we went through the classes examples, and then we did follow the steps of, labeling, clapping the syllables, and those are on the rest of the things. But I just figured you guys are adults and you can go through that by yourself. Okay, going to the next slide. All right. So this is exactly just another thing that I talked about, just, really trying to make sure that your writing is writing about the topics that are related to your content. So you're just not wasting that instructional time. And like I said, there is a time and place for all of that fun stuff too. These kids are 5. Like they should be writing, when it is a snowy day, of course it's acceptable to write about a snowy day if that's something that they want to do. But really trying to make sure that you are scheduling within your days and within your weeks, those routinely things like writing about the vocabulary words, just swapping out the words. And making sure that, the kids are getting as much practice with doing those things in such a systematic way that they know exactly what is expected of them every single time. It doesn't matter if we're writing about math problems. It doesn't matter if we're writing in science. It doesn't matter if we're writing in, CKLA. Like I said, the kids know they are drawing their picture first, then they're labeling, and then they're filling in that sentence. It doesn't matter if it's me, a substitute, whatever it is, they have learned that process and it makes it a lot easier for them to do it. Okay. And this just shows the different examples of those scaffolds that we do. So in October, all of their vocabulary sheets do look like this. They made them. I have a very, very high ESL population this year. So I did put the emoticons on those vocabulary words just to help, those ESL kids access those words too. So in October, if you want to slip to the next slide, Virginia, it'll show. So in October, my expectation for them is that they can just fill in that first sound. By November, they should be able to do the full word. And then by January, I'm kind of pulling that scaffold that they should be able to do 1 word or 2 words. And then words like that they have learned, like the words, to and go and things like that, those are all pulled and they should be able to fill those ones in by themselves. All right.
Sorry.
And then, no, you're fine. Okay, and then this was another technique that I did learn from the Writing Revolution last year, the because, but, so. I cannot explain what I'm so excited to get there this year with these kids, but the way that this has made their sentences so much richer is something that I never saw before. So, like I said, we're all learning. 2 years ago, I was like, wow, my kids can write 2 sentences. And when I look back at those writing samples that I kept, their 2 sentences were like, I like the sun. The sun is hot. And I'm like, that's great. But that's not like, just because I saw 2 periods there, I was kind of slapping myself in the back and giving myself credit for those 2 sentences. But like, if I look at these sentences now, like this is a true, wonderful 1 sentence. This is what they should look like to go to first grade. This is the expectation that I now have. They're using conjunctions. They're understanding how to expand 1 sentence thoughtfully. So just because your kids can slap on 3 or 4 periods into like a thought does not mean that they're really understanding what writing looks like. And I think that was a big shift in mindset for me. Is writing is not just putting words on paper. Writing is really taking thoughts and expanding them and adding details. And we've said that since we've been in 3rd grade ourselves. It's like a detail, but it is really a difference in what that mentality looks like. And it's hard for me to convince 5-year-olds how to do that, but to show them and to tell them, you can do these hard things and you can take this beautiful picture that you made of you like spring because you get to celebrate your mom's birthday. You don't like spring because it rains and there's flowers. And that's the thing that my kids always used to pull. Oh, flowers pop up in spring. What does a 5-year-old care about flowers? They have no care about them. But to be able to take these big words and really understand, like, I like spring, but I like Christmas more. Like, that is wonderful for a 5-year-old to be able to pull out those big words and, use those conjunctions to do that. So this is a strategy that you can even use with like a regular book. The first time I did this, I think I used a book that they were really familiar with and they thought it was funny, which was like Animals Don't Wear Clothes. So even if you wanted to do just something simple like that and get them like animals don't wear clothes because it's silly or because they have spikes or because, they would get too hot. But they could wear clothes because they would look cute in them, things like that. So it doesn't have to be curriculum related right away to get them used to this, just so that they can get their young brains wrapped around it. And they don't even have to write them down the first time, just to get them talking about it. To use those sentences, out loud and get used to using those words is wonderful. All right, next one. And then this, I believe, is my last one. Sentence expansions, like I said, is kind of just the other thing. And I do these 2 ways in my room, starting like in March-ish. The first one, I couldn't use the full picture just because there were some kids that can't use their faces. But we literally sit in a circle on the carpet and I start with 1 word. And I pass the whiteboard and we try to make as many sentences as we can, just passing around with 1 word. And it's difficult. And sometimes the kids just want to stop. And I'm like, okay, well, how can we make it a little bigger? Or what's a fun word that we can add? Or how could we describe that pig? Or, where is that location? Or what are they doing? And just that oral talk amongst the kids, and like their excitement gets so exciting when it's, a word they haven't thought of, or that collaboration piece is so exciting for them to be able to see. Like they really can make a big sentence, and it doesn't have to be, a difficult thing, and it doesn't have to be on a special piece of paper. And it's something that their brains can do. And then just this last piece is they do a lot of this accordion writing too. And sometimes this is totally scripted by me, and sometimes it's, their own ideas. But same thing, started with, I like spring, and it just goes down to like from very basic to all of these details added. And again, that can be just about any topic that you would like to be. But it's nice for them to be able to fold it and see like, okay, this is a very simple sentence, but this is the sentence that I'm capable and should be able to write just by adding a few extra words. But yeah, that's pretty much it as far as like this. I don't want to say the simplicity of it. But I will say my biggest overall take over the last few years is just to slow yourself down and just to give them, some grace. And to live in that sentence world. Like the second that you start pushing past that and expecting more and expecting those 3 and 4 sentences, there's going to be some kids, you're going to have some kids that walk into your room and they are capable of more, and don't hold them back. But, you can challenge them and you can give them a little more, but I really think it's best, to really, and if you have some first grade teachers that, they want a little more from you, I think that they will be pleasantly surprised by having kids that, are overall better at just writing one solid sentence with proper spacing and proper punctuation and proper sound, production. It would be hard to fight that back. But all right, Virginia, I'm going to pass it on to you.
Sure. Before we do, Kate, is there anything for specifically for Caitlin?
There's nothing specific. There's one question for Caitlin that just came in. Can you explain the expanding the sentences just a little bit more from Nicole? And there's a big like meaty question that I think we'll save for the end from Karen. So I want to know you've been heard, Karen, but yeah, tell us a little more about sentence expansion, Nicole. Or sorry, Caitlin.
No, you're fine. Sure. Do you mean, can she unmute? Does she mean just like like how to do it, or?
Yeah, feel free to unmute, Nicole, and if not, if you're not in a good spot, also I think just talk about like how you build up to it, and like how do you decide like what parts to like expand. But Nicole, feel free to chime in.
Yeah, if you could just explain just how you did that spring.
Oh yes, perfect. So
Perfect.
I would start with like a basic, just like I said, a typical sentence that any kindergartner really could come up with, like in springtime. So like, I like spring, or even it could be simple like, I like my mom, or the dog, the dog is brown, or whatever. And then it's folded kind of like an accordion, so like that back and forth. And I would just ask the kids like, okay, what is something that we can add to this sentence to make it better? So think about the things that happen in springtime. Think about the things that you would see. Think about the things you could smell. Think about the things we talk about, like this, the 5 senses. And then we would say, I like spring, and we could use the because, but, so I like spring because it is, whatever, or I like spring and I like this, or I like spring, but not this, so just kind of each line I would take and add one more thing, if that makes sense. Or the top one, it could just say like, I like spring. The next one, you could do a separate sentence. Like, I like the sun. The next one, you could say, I like spring because I like the sun. So kind of combining those next 2 sentences together to show that those 2 don't have to be separate sentences. You can use that word because in the middle to combine them. It's honestly endless. So you could it really depends on what your class is like. But my biggest thing is just to show them, it doesn't have to, whatever the image in your mind, it really can make it bigger. So like I've done it before where we see the dog. Okay, what does that dog look like? We see the brown dog. We see the brown dog at the park. We see the brown dog at the park with its mom, so just making sure that every single time you open up that accordion paper, that picture of that dog is getting more detailed and more specific. Does that help?
It sure does. Thank you so much.
No problem.
We have one more question for Caitlin, and then we are gonna, in the interest of time,
Sorry.
we're gonna no, Caitlin, you're keeping it crisp. This is like, as I said, this is all an experiment. Like we have 3 presenters tonight. But I'm curious about grammar. We have a good question in the chat from Jeanette about like how you deal with like grammar generally, and like what kind of role that plays in this sentence level composition.
I think at this age, the pronouns are very basic, but we do like they're introduced to the words like I, she, can, the. So we do go back and make sure that those things match. I've always talked about if we're saying, I'm trying to think of an example. Like possessive should match, things like that. So I will go back and have them reread their sentences to make sure that they are aligned. But I guess in kindergarten, the biggest thing that I really stress right now is that one, it's a sentence. They should have uppercase letters at the beginning. Uppercase letters, names of important people, names of places, they do learn those things. Finger spaces, we talk about from the very beginning, and punctuation at the end. I've done a million times where I write a sentence on the board, I change the punctuation, they change their voice inflection, they understand what the punctuation means. So, I mean, they as basic as kindergarten grammar is, they do learn all of the basics of it. I do tell them what the terminology is. As far as like adjectives and stuff like that, I'm not sure as much as it clicks, but I'll be like, oh, remember, an adjective is a word that describes something. So can you tell me a describing word? So even though they don't technically know what an adjective is called, they will, still pull those grammar pieces out. But if they are writing a sentence and it has a lowercase t at the beginning of the word and it should be an uppercase, like we will go back and we will make sure that that is circled and they remember like, okay, no, that's supposed to be uppercase. So even though it is, more of a juvenile writing, they still should have those pieces in place from the beginning because you don't want to have to go back later and correct those pieces.
I imagine every first and second and fifth grade teacher on this call. Thanks you very much for that. Let's without further ado, let's kick it over to Virginia to talk about first grade.
Sure. Just to introduce myself very, very quickly, I am a moderator on the What I Should Have Learned in Facebook page, and I have a virtual forum where I've been fortunate enough to host some of the biggest influencers really in the science of reading community. But first and foremost, I'm a first grade teacher, and I stay in the classroom because I feel like if I'm not doing it, I can't really tell other people how to do it. So it's really important to me that I maintain my practitioner status. So I honestly, in first grade, I don't leave that much past the sentence level either. I'm a big writing revolution person as well. It's not a curriculum, it's a strategy, and it's a practice of how to learn reading. But if they can leave me with very strong sentences, and then a couple of sentences towards the end of the year, I feel like I've done my job. This is a quote from the writing revolution, and it really does speak to me because for years I just would put a cute writing thing in front of them and sort of walk away from it. All of my writing, and Caitlin touched on this really well a lot because it's important. My writing is about content, and if they are learning about something and then writing about something, that's a much better cognitive lean for them, as opposed to just writing about an arbitrary day that they had with their grandparents. So, and it also, if they're acquiring the knowledge and they're writing about the knowledge, they have to then kick in the vocabulary and all the background knowledge that we've been working with. Just like Caitlin did with the complete and incomplete sentences. I'm not going to show the video because I want to make sure that we get Amanda in, but I now bring in the vocabulary of fragments, and I made up a story for them that none of them was a complete sentence. So I won't show you me doing it, but I'll show you the reaction. You have a problem with my story? Yeah. What's your problem?
That you just using words that don't go with the story.
Did it make any sense?
No!
If I said turn and talk and tell your friend what the story is all about, would you be able to tell them anything?
No.
Yep. By the way, yup is my keyword for stop recording. I was too lazy to delete the end. And here they are, and Caitlin also touched on this, and I have to say, the three of us didn't really align our videos, but I think that that's a really, really good thing, because it's fascinating for me to watch how you did it in kindergarten, and now I'm doing a lot of the same learning, just kicking it up a bit, and I can't wait to watch Amanda kick it up, the 3 steps up. So now they figured out, and also the foundation for writing is oral language, and I heard Caitlin talk about this too. We speak in fragments, but we cannot write in fragments, but we tend to. So when you're talking to your kids, when you're asking them questions, always use a complete sentence and make sure they answer you. I will oftentimes stop them and say, well, hold on, and then give it to me in a full sentence. We're like a bunch of robots marching around my room.
Even make like any sense.
The reason it doesn't make any sense is because they're not real sentences. Every sentence has to have a who is doing what. So see, even there, you can see how it's been elevated just a little bit from kindergarten. So the good old I do, we do. Now here's their we do. This is just one lesson this week, by the way, or last week.
The eagle's yellow beak.
Fragment or a sentence, huh? So that noise they're making is, I basically said to them, if somebody reads something to you, if you read your own work, or if your partner reads work, they're writing to you and it doesn't make sense, and you go, huh, I don't know. So that's what they were doing when it was a fragment. What? What'd you say, Colin? That makes you do what? I don't know. Clearly it was a fragment. Somebody asked a question earlier about grammar. And this is, if you have not done this activity, I actually learned it at the Reading League conferences this year. It's a really good way for teaching grammar and syntax, and the kids actually really love it. And we're still, again, Caitlin, I'm gonna keep like evoking your name, because I'm just building on everything that you've already said. But
I do think it's crazy that we are in totally different states and doing such. Like, I think it's wonderful to attest to this stuff works. Like, it does work. So everything I'm doing, which is totally we didn't talk, like you said, we didn't discuss this. This is just you threw videos in, I threw videos in. I was like, oh my gosh, they're parallel, which is wonderful.
I know, but it's great to see just
Yes.
how they're a little bit older and they have a little bit more, thanks to kindergarten teachers like yourself. But anyway, this is a great activity.
With my friends. When? The friends went to the park. The friends went to the park? Oh, yeah. Come next play. And play. To play. At the pool. Madison. To play. Where's the park? The friends went to the park to play. The friends went to the park to play. Yeah.
I see one thing that should be changed.
The friends went to the park to play.
Madison, why do you and Scarlett have to switch?
Because Scarlett's is uppercase and mine lowercase.
Fantastic.
The
Okay, now read it.
The friends went to the park to play.
And how do we know for positive that Colin is the very last word?
Because he has a period.
So you literally can't not learn syntax and grammar through that activity. We are also focusing on the different types of sentences. And honestly, I'm showing this video for one reason and one reason only, and I'll tell you when I'm done. Okay, so you all see that picture?
Yeah.
Is it fantastic?
Yeah.
Are they the cutest thing ever?
Yeah.
All right. You're going to look at that picture for a minute, and I want you to write an interrogative sentence. Does anybody remember what an interrogative sentence is?
Yeah.
If you know it, say it.
It's a It's a question.
It's a question. An interrogative sentence is a what now?
It's a question.
A who now?
A question.
Okay, and what are you going to put at the end of your interrogative sentence? Show me. What? Show me.
Whoa.
So do you have any questions while you're... So the reason why I'm showing it, I don't know if you can see, but the first child wrote, "Are they at the beach?" Question. My next child, who is very, very literal, his question is that a picture? So I might have missed the boat just a little bit on that guy. And I know that I've already said it. And again, a lot of my learning is from Natalie Wexler. But when we tie writing to what they're learning in content, it's really a win-win. Content has really gone away over several years, science and social studies, and it's been replaced by like all about me units. And I'm happy to learn about them, but maybe for like 5 minutes in the first day, but we keep it going through like March. So, well, it's obvious we're learning about penguins, but by the time these kids are done, it is in their oral language, it's in their writing, and then they eventually begin to connect all the vocabulary words. Bless you, Caitlin. I didn't hear it, but I saw it. Okay, are we ready for our vocabulary word of the day?
Yes.
Really ready?
Yes.
Okay. It's a verb. And a verb is an...
Action.
Yes, it is. It's an action word. And the word today is toboggan.
Toboggan.
You're good. Say toboggan.
Toboggan.
Clap toboggan.
Toboggan.
Show me the syllables. Fantastic. Okay. So toboggan, another word for toboggan would be to slide. Okay? And a penguin, sometimes instead of walking, it will toboggan
On his belly.
down a hill on its belly. Okay? So toboggan is like slide. Oh! All right, so I showed him a picture of them tobogganing, and we talked more about the vocabulary. We connected some of the words together, and here's some of the kids writing. Brown, what's your sentence?
Penguins can use their flippers.
I wish I knew what they use their flippers for. If only Brandon
I
would tell
forgot.
me. They use their flippers to what? He said toboggan. To help them toboggan. All right, Kyle, you want to share?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Penguins toboggan to one place to another.
Okay. You could put waddle in there too.
So,
Does waddle help them get from one place to another too?
yeah,
It sure does. So how can you add waddle also in your sentence?
penguins waddle or toboggan to one place to another.
That's outstanding. That is quite a sentence. Last thing. Something else that's really important is before they write, they have to say their writing out loud to each other. And it's amazing how often, and we all do this too, and then they have to share when they're done writing. And we know this, like how many times do I see our kids go, "Oh, wait, what?" And they like jump up and they go back to their table with their pencil.
My sentence is penguins. If they're in the water, they come out when they either want to get warm or cool down. I mean, just to like shed off their old feathers and get new ones, or they just do it so that they can update.
So that sentence sort of goes on and on like that. And I walked away and she came and she found me later and she said, "So that was way too much." And then she told me, but by saying it out loud, she realized that she had several sentences and she wasn't really constructing any. But I'd like to give a quick shout out to her listening partner who stayed with her the whole time. And sentence expansion, again, looking at seeing how it looked in kindergarten and now seeing how it looks in first grade. I will start with my kids with, they get the noun, and the verb, or as Kit would say, the who and the do. And then to expand it, they have to create a simple sentence, and then from that sentence, they put the when, the where, the why, and the how. And I will just show you, I think their sentence was hunters came. We were reading Tacky the Penguin. All right, my friends, I heard this sentence, so please prepare to be amazed. Yes? All right, start with your simple sentence.
The hunters came.
The hunters came. Excellent. Now give me your expanded, give me your longer sentence, one that you expanded.
The hunters came on a day to the ocean land to catch the fairies to be rich.
Whoo-wee! How about a little applause for these friends? You'd be rich, rich, rich. So I'm not going to show this, but because I also love because but so. And what's a little different in first grade is they do it all in the same sitting to just kick it up a little more. And I'm just going to end it with, I do try to get in this goofy writing. When I presented on small groups, I spent a lot of time talking about what my centers looks like, and this is where I get that kind of writing in. So I do get it in, but unless there's anything for me, I'm gonna punt it on over to Miss Amanda.
Any quick questions for Virginia? Drop them in the chat, and then we'll move on to second grade, which is eerily aligned with kindergarten. and first.
All right. Well, you kiddo.
All right, thank you. And it's so funny that you guys both talked about the because, but, so sentences because I actually thought, I'm like, ooh, I remember I had a video saved from last year from Goyen that I should plug in, and I didn't, but it would have been hilarious had I added that in. All right, everyone, I'll quickly introduce myself. My name's Amanda Wader. I teach second grade in Quakertown, Pennsylvania, where it is also frigid currently. And what Caitlin said earlier really resonated with me, how this is not going to be a change or something you implement all at once fully. It's impossible. I began my science of reading journey back, I want to say in 2019. And I've been every year kind of adding things, adjusting things. I really started heavy with after my letters training, our phonemic awareness, our phonics practice, our direct, explicit, systematic instruction. I started devouring every single text, Natalie Wexler's being the first, which I have, I think, 3 copies, one at my house, one at school, one that I lend, just because it has been so life-changing. But not until recently did I really change up my writing and have my writing match what I was reading, particularly from the Writing Revolution. All right, go ahead, Virginia.
Jen's fine.
Okay, thanks. So, through my research of the Writing Revolution, I found the Syntax Project. And if you're not familiar with it, the Syntax Project it was created, like it states, by a group of Australian teachers. They were using the explicit instruction model. They used the Writing Revolution by Judith C. Hochman and Natalie Wexler, and they took the Writing Matters text by William Van Cleve, and they created essentially a scope and sequence. Go ahead, you can go to the next slide. Thank you. Of lessons for pre-foundational level skills, which could be pre-K, kindergarten, all the way through 5th or 6th grade. It is something that has completely changed the way that I teach writing. And when I say that, nope, I couldn't implement every single thing all at once, this is something that I could. I literally went to the website and I'm like, oh, let me try out this lesson. It's completely free. You go on, you click either where you feel your students are or the grade that you were teaching. I started looking at the first grade lessons just because I knew, we came from a units of study district. So a lot of, the Lucy Calkins writing pieces, and there were a lot of gaps to fill. So I started a little bit, before where my students were, building up their syntax, building up their grammar, really focusing on, like what both Caitlin and Virginia said, the sentence level before moving on to anything else. But I just love that this is a free resource. The scope and sequence is right there for you. And then you can take the slides that they provide and edit it to match the content that you are teaching, which I think was a game changer for me. I am a huge, like I said, knowledge. Oh, sorry. Um, I am a huge fan of the knowledge gap. That was the biggest eye opener for me. So the fact that I can tailor this to the content I'm teaching is huge. All right, go ahead, Virginia. So when I began this journey with the Writing Revolution, Writing Matters, and the Syntax Project, I really had to think about, okay, even though it says right here that this is second grade, I need to begin where my students actually are. I can't just jump up to second if they're missing all of those foundational skills that they need to be able to write that solid sentence or that solid paragraph. So I started honestly with handwriting, and that became for a while my big focus. All right, guys, uppercase letter to begin your sentence with, a proper noun. You need punctuation at the end. We need your letters formed the correct way. You have to think about the cognitive load. If your students are so focused on just how to form the letters accurately, they're not able to fully focus on, okay, I hear these phonemes, what graphemes do I need to match? And then what is my actual sentence? They don't have enough cognitive load to do that. So we really started focusing on our handwriting. Then what I researched is that, wow, students need to be writing about their content. I think you both said, Caitlin and Virginia, that content was kind of pushed to the wayside. We have had many different ELA curriculums that are focused on those my community, making friends, whereas our students need to be learning that content, which will then help them become not only better readers, but better writers. The vocabulary is a huge piece of it. So a coworker and I discovered Core Knowledge. It's not a curriculum that our school uses. However, we have the okay from our principal to use in place of our social studies curriculum. So I use the Syntax Project for my social studies time, so I can really write about that content. As Anita Archer says, I do, we 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 do, and then finally you do. It's a lot of we do, we do, we do to make sure that they have those skills before I let them go on their own. And with that being said, we gradually increase. For example, with the videos that I'll be showing you today, it's okay, we start with the who and the do. Now we'll add, okay, why are they doing this? How, the when, the where. We're expanding their sentences, or we'll do the activity where it's, okay, so here's the beginning of your sentence. Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation because, or he signed this so, or he signed this but, so they can take what content we're learning and then expand with those three sentences. So Virginia, I'm not sure if if you're able to click on that link there, or if it is still linked in the PowerPoint.
If I do, it will take me.
It'll take you there, but it won't show it.
But I'm just afraid if I clicked on it, it'll take me off the screen.
Got it. Okay, then don't click it. Don't click it at all. I can link it in the chat then. So I have an example of one of my slides that I edited for this core knowledge unit that I was doing. This was for the ancient Greek unit. So we have the who, the when, the where, and the what. And I color coded those, and then we took each parts of those and we put it together into that cohesive sentence. So we discussed beforehand, okay, who are we talking about? What did they do? When did this take place? Where was it? And then at the bottom, we write that cohesive sentence. And we'll talk about that all together so they get that practice of, okay, these are the parts that I should be having in my sentence. Okay, you can go to the next slide. Okay, so then this is one that I did recently with our Civil War unit. And again, we are still in the process of adding more things. So for this lesson, honestly, because we just had a short amount of time with the many delays we've had recently, like, okay, we're just going to do a quick who, do, why. Um, and then you can go ahead and show the lesson, then I'll explain.
Got it.
Said we just did our lesson before power time. And our goal for our writing is to identify the who of our lesson, do what they did, and why they did what they did. Now, you're not going to write this first part. You are just going to focus after we identify these three things on how we can take those three things and put them together in a cohesive sentence to summarize the reading that we just did. Go ahead. So let's talk about the who. Who were we talking about during our lesson just now? Tell the person next to you. Who are we talking about? Okay.
The 16th president.
Love that.
Yeah.
Okay. And there could be a few answers to this, guy. So it really depends on this first answer where our writing takes us. Okay. All right. Jackson, who are we talking about?
The 16th president. Abraham.
Who is?
Abraham Lincoln.
Excellent. Okay. So Abraham Lincoln, that is our who. Now we could have said the Union States,
And
the Confederacy,
good.
but this is a great direction to go in.
The do.
Yep, the do. What did he do?
The do.
What did he do in that lesson? And I don't want to hear that he was elected president. We know that. Give me something more. Oh, what did he?
He started. This.
Think about.
Oh.
Talk to the person next to you.
Oh.
What did he do?
He made the other stop dying people.
Okay.
And he couldn't get along.
Okay. Oh, I like what I heard over this way. Okay.
And if you want it, you can scroll
right.
through a little bit if you want to, like later on in the video, just to see the end result. So what, actually, you know what, you can just pause it there for the sake of time. What they were doing is they were coming up with the who, the do, and the why, but based on our particular lesson. So really reinforcing that content that I had just taught. And I believe with that lesson, it was where Fort Sumter was still a part of the United States. However, the Confederate States wanted to take over. So President Lincoln had the choice to, okay, am I going to withdraw the troops? Am I going to begin the attack? Or am I going to send supplies to kind of leave it up to the Confederacy to see what they're going to do? And then you'll see on the next slide how the kiddos took what we talked about and did their writing. If you want to just do you can skip the first slide. That's where I'm going around and I'm really checking their handwriting, making sure it's impeccable. They have their uppercase letters where needed. They have their punctuation. But if you want to read or do the you know what, just do the third and the fourth videos.
You got it.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Cheryl.
Abraham Lincoln sent supplies to Fort Sumter to see if they would attack the U.S. soldiers.
Okay, and then if you want to do, yep, the fourth video as well.
This little cutie with the glasses.
Right, she's great.
Lincoln sent supplies to Fort
Sumter.
Sumter to see if they would attack.
Oh, it cut off. Okay, maybe do the second one. Sorry.
Lincoln sent supplies to Fort Sumter
Good.
to see if they would attack the U.S. soldiers.
What we did is we came up with the who, the do, the why together. And then I wish Hattie's would have clipped the whole thing. I must have done the wrong one. So then they were tasked with putting that into their complete sentence. And then for the kiddos who wanted to, they were able to expand on that. For example, Hattie wrote that surprisingly, nobody was seriously injured because in that attack, nobody was killed, even after 34 hours. So not only do I like to have them write about the content, but then I have them share it with others around them. So not only are they reinforcing what they wrote, they're making sure that they have the who, the do, the where, the when, the why, whichever pieces we're talking about. But then they're also practicing that vocabulary, that fluency, and really working on, mapping those more difficult words. You can scroll to or click to the next one. And then this is more of the same.
Count of three.
So
I want
we're
you to
doing the next
say
lesson. And again, we're
who
going
the
over
who
the
is.
who and the do
All right,
and the why.
1, 2, 3. The Union Army. Wait, all right. So we have the Union Army. Okay? What did they do? Tell the person next to you. What did they do? I don't just want to hear. I guess we could say that. Okay, that worked. Tell the person next to you. What did they do? They lost the first battle of the Civil War. Okay. They the second battle, first official battle. But I love where your head's at there, Andy. Okay. So the Union Army lost the first battle of we're gonna call it the Battle of Bull Run or the Battle of Manassas. Okay. I don't even know. And this is a good thing. Why did they lose? Because tell the person next to you. Why? There was a reason though. Because they lost. I don't. Because they did. Can you close the door, honey? Okay. Oh, okay.
All right, and we can pause it there.
Yeah.
Thanks. Sorry, my computer just died, so now I'm on my phone. It's great.
Technology.
Don't you love technology? And I knew it too. I'm like, I really need to remember my charger, and this is how it goes. You can head to the next slide. Actually, that might be it.
There is no, yeah, that's it.
Okay, so I think in the chat, Kata, I believe you plugged in the link for the syntax project and then also Core Knowledge. I did see a question about that. Core Knowledge is something, yes, it is a free resource. It is something that I am extremely passionate about. My teaching has completely changed since I began using it. I have students in 5th grade, 4th grade, 3rd grade who during their recess come to me every morning. They're like, Mrs. Waiter, what lesson are you doing today? Can I come back and help with this? I had a group of boys who were in 5th grade now that when we did our transcontinental railroad lesson, I always had my students build the railroad the day after with popsicle sticks and tape. And for the past, 3 years that they were in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, they have come back to do that lesson with me. So yes, I highly recommend it. It is something that I use the language arts version for my social studies time, but the content is so incredible, and the connections my students make and the vocabulary they're using and the text that they're now able to read, it's wonderful. I love it.
Thank you so much, Amanda, and also for just hopping on your phone on your computer. That is some
Oh no.
high quality problem solving. We're at 8:04 East Coast time, but I did before we wrapped, I wanted to share Karen early 45 minutes ago, has been very patiently waiting. She shared a really complex and thoughtful question in the chat, and she's about to start a coaching cycle with a couple of first grade teachers with the goal of having their students write a successful informational paragraph that includes topic sentence, supporting detail, conclusion sentence. And she's curious for specific ideas and activities she should use to help them get there. That's a pretty big ask and a big step for first grade. And I wanted to just open it up to everybody. First our primary panelists, but then maybe some other folks should feel free to chime in. But yeah, so yeah, I'm gonna kick it over to Virginia, Amanda, Caitlin. What
I
are we
guess,
going to
Karen,
do?
I'll start with just a little bit of practice and also a question. So one of the best ways to expand kids' writing when it comes to like sort of informational reporting like that, summarizing is best. Summarizing is the best form of comprehension. And doing a lot of summarizing through oral language first will help get them there. But just looking at a lot of evidence-based writing practices, I guess my question would be is why is that your goal? What research or what evidence-based book or article, or I'm just curious why that's
It's
the
a Kansas state standard.
then it is? Wow, that is not the Common Core standard. But in any event, that's where I would start. I would start with like a ton of summarizing small things and then summarizing bigger things. And that Amanda can definitely jump in here as well because it's
I was gonna say I can help too if you want. So I also spent a year doing facilitation for like AIM as Academy's PPR, and there's like a whole section that reaches a little bit above my grade level, but I did take some of the things from that. And just if you wanted like actual like physical practice stuff that you could do for them, I do agree. I think it's a little bit heavy of a workload, but you obviously don't have a choice. Some things that I just off the top of my head can remember, like that we did during the one section of that, which was like a writing specific, was things with like I wrote these down so I didn't forget. Like paragraph puzzles. So you could take like already written like informational paragraphs and kind of like break them up into puzzles, and that way the kids can then put them back together so they can like piecemeal, like, okay, this is the topic sentence, these are the supporting details, this is what the conclusion looks like, so they can really get used to what those look like. You can also split the kids up and maybe give them a topic and make it a game and be like, okay, you get this many points, you get this many points, come up with as many supporting details about this topic as you can. The only other suggestion that I have that I could think of literally off the top of my head was they talked a lot about like detail sorting. So like give them the details and then ask them if this is relevant. Like, okay, we're writing about whatever your information rating is. Maybe it's about like tornadoes. I have no idea. But like, does it matter that, there's been, one tornado in the last year? That's probably not a relevant statement because it doesn't matter, so like give them the information and see if they can pick out what is relevant to go in there, what's not relevant to go in there, and then build, their own paragraphs themselves. My suggestion, just because I'm right before you, would be, to give them as much practice with already finished product before you give them a blank slate, if that makes sense.
Thank you, guys. I'm typing all these up frantically as you're talking. I appreciate it.
And Karen, there's a lot of chatter in the group chat about Think SRSD, which I think is probably, I posted the link to the website and as well as the Facebook group. There's some folks on social media too, Lindsay Kemeny, and Kate Wynn, who often share examples of what those their kindergartners and first graders work can look like using that program.
right.
So that might be one.
I was starting to say before that Amanda, uh, she and I both had similar sentence expansion sheets where it was, the sentence and then the who, what, why, when, and where, and how. And in the writing revolution, they have a template of just what you're looking for. So they have, topic, sentence, and then supporting details. So there's some go charts in there too that could help.
I agree. I would highly recommend looking through there for resources. And also, I mean, peruse the syntax project. There are so many ideas there. And if you look in the different slides, they give you ideas of how to structure things.
Okay, yeah, we did a book study on the writing revolution earlier this school year, so I'm familiar with that one. I'll check out the syntax project. I just didn't want to overwhelm because we do CKLA, and so we've got a very full skills and knowledge time. So I don't want to overwhelm them putting in a whole bunch of extra writing stuff. I'm just trying to fit, and I know you can fit in writing revolution with your content. I know that's its whole purpose, but it's just, a time situation.
Who's
So
this?
thank you guys.
As we wrap up here, I'm dropping a whole bunch of links in the chat. First of all, the slides from tonight. There, we didn't get to watch all the videos. Feel free to watch those videos. Feel free to reach out to folks, to Virginia, to Caitlin, Amanda. If you guys want to just drop your emails in the chat with questions, there's just like a lot of good, just so much good content on there. Also sharing a recording of our first teacher session, Virginia leading on small groups. That's also super worth watching. And then just also plugging, if you're a wonderful reading teacher like these ladies are, consider applying to be a Boy Literacy Fellow. Drop some information about that program in the chat too. And then we got another question before we wrap up. Is there a great writing book geared to K-2 teachers if folks want to chime in either orally or in the chat with recommendations? That would be great. And then we can wrap for the night.
I mean, my go-to is the Writing Revolution. Anna Geiger just wrote Reaching All Readers, and there's a good chapter on writing.
I also think the Writing Revolution is the best one, even for kindergarten, which is pretty hard to find really good content for that. I do think if you read through it and highlight, you can really find things that is good enough for you. I did see on the Think SRSD Twitter handle that they are reviving that to have it include more kindergarten-based things. I think she said, honestly, January like 10th or 15th or something, so it might have already be in the process of happening. I think originally there was like a few ideas in there with through their like training modules and stuff, but I think that they are going to come out with a pre-K K heavy training, which will be nice too. So look out for that.
Yep, I agree. The writing revolution is definitely my go-to.
And just for the slides I shared before you guys go, it seems like the videos might not be playing. I'm gonna try one more time. And if they're not playing, like we will make sure that the video permissions are set. So trying one more time to see if that works. And if it doesn't, the presenters will work to like make sure those are available. But oh, and one more question from Maria. Can you write down the title for the last book you mentioned for pre-K to kinder? Caitlin,
It wasn't a book, it was just the think here, I'll type it in.
Perfect. Thank you. You're the best.
Just you, Amanda.
Yeah, Amanda, we'll figure out how to share those videos.
That's funny. I wonder why.
Yeah.
Whenever I logged into mine, it said like you don't have access to play these videos. So it's probably when she put them in, like I had to do mine to anybody with a link. She probably did hers to just maybe you or somebody else. So it's probably just a sharing thing.
We'll make that happen. Thank you guys so much. I'm gonna stop the recording and
Yeah, I'm gonna fix that right now.
edit.